Welcome to Trump Wire, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. In the spring of 2025, a storm erupted between the United States and Canada, shattering decades of relatively stable trade relations. What began as simmering frustration over trade imbalances and shifting global alliances quickly escalated into a full-blown economic conflict that would send shockwaves through both nations. President Trump, invoking national security concerns and accusing Canada of unfair trade practices, imposed a sudden 25% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum. The move stunned markets and allies alike. But the real shock came just weeks later, when Trump doubled down, raising the tariff to a staggering 50% in June, sending a clear message that he was willing to play hardball. This aggressive escalation was more than just a negotiating tactic. It was a direct challenge to Canada's economic backbone, designed to force Prime Minister Trudeau's government to the table, on terms dictated by Washington. Trump's message was clear and uncompromising. American industries, especially those in the heartland, needed protection from what he called unfair foreign competition. He promised his supporters that he alone could restore American manufacturing might, and the tariffs were his weapon of choice. But the tariffs didn't stop at Canada. In a bold move, the administration announced a sweeping 10% global reciprocal tariff, targeting all U.S. trading partners. The message was unmistakable. The era of one-sided deals was over, and every nation would have to renegotiate if they wanted access to the American market. For Canada, the 50% tariff was more than an economic blow. It felt like a deep betrayal. The steel and aluminum industries, vital to thousands of Canadian families, suddenly faced an existential threat. Business owners, workers, and politicians alike were left reeling, questioning the future of a partnership that had lasted over a century. Inside the White House, the calculation was simple: inflict enough economic pain, and Canada would have no choice but to concede. Factories slowed, jobs were at risk, and the pressure mounted with each passing day. But in Canada, the response was defiant. Leaders condemned the tariffs as an attack on their sovereignty and economic independence. Citizens rallied in the streets, waving flags and demanding their government stand firm against what they saw as bullying from their southern neighbor. As tensions mounted, diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent messages. The world watched as two close allies found themselves locked in a standoff, each side digging in, unwilling to blink first. The stage was set for a historic confrontation, one that would test the resolve, leadership, and economic strength of both nations. Neither side was prepared to back down. Canada, led by Prime Minister Mark Carney, hit back immediately. The government wasted no time in responding to the U.S. tariffs, determined to show both resolve and unity. In a move that surprised some observers, Canadian officials stood shoulder to shoulder, making it clear that this was not just a political dispute, but a matter of national pride and economic survival. Ottawa imposed retaliatory tariffs matching the U.S. dollar for dollar, 25% on nearly $30 billion of American goods. The message was unmistakable. For every dollar in tariffs the U.S. imposed, Canada would respond in kind, refusing to back down or be intimidated. The targets were carefully chosen, not just metals, but over 500 products from gold to barbecues, designed to hit U.S. industries and political pressure points. These products were selected to maximize the impact on key American sectors, from manufacturing to agriculture, and to send a clear signal to U.S. lawmakers that Canada could strike where it hurt most. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne declared Canada would not be bullied, vowing the tariffs would stay as long as U.S. measures remained. He emphasized that Canada's response was measured but firm, and that the government was prepared to stand its ground for as long as necessary. The government's strategy was flexible. Tariffs could escalate or ease depending on negotiations. Behind closed doors, Canadian negotiators worked tirelessly, analyzing every possible scenario and preparing for a range of outcomes. The stakes were high, and every move was calculated to protect Canadian jobs and industries. Canada's message: it was ready for a prolonged fight and would defend its industries at all costs. Workers, business leaders, and politicians alike rallied together, determined to weather the storm and emerge stronger, no matter how long the dispute lasted. The countermeasures rallied domestic support and signaled to the world that Canada would not be pushed around. Across the country, citizens voiced their backing for the government's tough stance, while international observers watched closely, recognizing Canada's resolve on the global stage. A ticking clock was set. Tariffs would be reviewed in July, adding urgency to talks. The looming deadline put pressure on both sides to find common ground, as businesses and workers anxiously awaited the outcome. Canada was not just reacting, it was actively managing the conflict. Every decision was part of a broader strategy, balancing economic interests with political realities, and always keeping the long-term health of Canadian industries in mind. The economic battle lines were drawn, and both nations braced for what could become a defining moment in their trade relationship. For Canada, this was more than a dispute over tariffs. It was a test of resilience, unity, and the will to stand up for its people and its future. In response to mounting global trade tensions, Canada decided to take a bold step forward, moving beyond simple retaliation and launching its ambitious Buy Canadian policy. This was more than just a reaction, it was a statement of national intent, signaling that Canada would prioritize its own industries and workers in the face of international uncertainty. Starting July 30th, a sweeping new rule came into effect. All federal infrastructure and government projects were now required to use only Canadian-made steel and aluminum. This guaranteed a steady, reliable demand for domestic producers, providing them with a crucial lifeline and helping to stabilize jobs across the country. But the government knew that simply boosting local demand wasn't enough. To prevent Canada from becoming a dumping ground for excess global metals, strict tariff rate quotas were imposed. Any imports above 2024 levels from countries without a free trade agreement would now face a punishing 50% tariff, making it far less attractive for foreign producers to flood the Canadian market. By August, the policy tightened even further. The tariff rate quota system was expanded to include nearly all of Canada's free trade partners, except for the United States and Mexico, who were exempt under existing agreements. This move sent a clear message: Canada was willing to stand up to even its closest allies to protect its own economic interests. The overarching goal was simple but powerful: shield Canadian producers from the threat of global oversupply, and ensure that every dollar of government spending directly benefited local industry and Canadian workers. In addition, Canada cracked down on Chinese steel, closing loopholes that allowed foreign steel to enter the country disguised as products from other nations. Customs inspections became more rigorous, and new regulations targeted trans-shipped goods, making it harder for companies to evade the new rules. These combined measures effectively built a defensive wall around Canadian industry, creating a secure environment where local businesses could thrive without fear of being undercut by cheap imports. The government's message was unmistakable: Canadian jobs and prosperity would always come first. Workers across the country felt a renewed sense of pride and security, knowing their livelihoods were being fiercely protected. The trade war had evolved. It was no longer just about tariffs and numbers. It had become a fight for economic sovereignty, for the right to control the nation's own destiny in a turbulent world. With determination and unity, Canada was now firmly committed to controlling its own market, protecting its industries, and shaping its economic future on its own terms. With the US market blocked, Canada pivoted fast. European and Asian nations, wary of Trump's unpredictability, rushed to secure Canadian aluminum and resources. The EU accelerated trade talks, eager to diversify supply chains. Major deals followed. European automakers and Asian manufacturers signed long-term contracts with Canadian suppliers. These new markets helped offset the loss of US business, showing Canadian industry's resilience. Prime Minister Carney's government led aggressive trade missions, forging new alliances. The message to Washington, Canada would not be isolated. Trump's tariffs, meant to cripple Canada, instead pushed it toward global partners. Even if tariffs ended, US firms might find Canadian suppliers committed elsewhere. The North American trade landscape was changing, possibly for good. Diplomacy offered a brief hope at the G7 summit in Alberta. Carney and Trump agreed to a 30-day truce, aiming for a new trade deal, but global crises cut talks short and negotiators failed to bridge the gap. In October, Trump abruptly ended negotiations, citing Canadian-funded anti-tariff ads in the US. Carney revealed a deal was close, blaming Trump's withdrawal for sabotaging months of work. The collapse deepened mistrust and left both nations locked in conflict. The diplomatic window slammed shut. The trade war became a public feud. Trump's rhetoric was blunt, accusing Canada of freeloading and defending U.S. interests. Carney countered with measured legalistic language, calling the tariffs unjust and illegal. Both leaders rallied their nations, projecting strength and resolve. U.S. officials echoed Trump's grievances. Canadian ministers spoke of defending sovereignty. British Columbia's anti-tariff ads in the U.S. showed a united Canadian front. Competing narratives fueled public anger and widened the rift. The war of words was as fierce as the economic battle. The real casualties were workers and businesses on both sides. Canadian steel and aluminum producers lost their biggest market overnight, forcing layoffs and canceled projects. Many bid on domestic contracts at zero profit just to survive. U.S. manufacturers faced soaring costs, passing them to consumers or risking losses. Inflation rose, and American goods became less competitive, an ironic twist for a protectionist policy. Canadian tariffs hit U.S. farmers and small businesses, shrinking their export markets. Small firms struggled to adapt, facing existential threats. For many, the trade war was not politics, it was a fight for survival. The pain was widespread, with no easy solutions in sight. The economic fallout was real and personal. The economic shock forced Canada's central bank and government to act. The Bank of Canada cut interest rates to 2.25% to counteract the slowdown. Relief programs were launched, tariff exemptions for re-exported goods, and aid for firms unable to source outside the U.S. A major loan program was expanded, offering large companies access to emergency funds. The government's message: it would backstop key industries and protect jobs. In November, Carney's first budget prioritized infrastructure, innovation, and worker retraining. The crisis became a catalyst for economic transformation. Canada aimed to emerge stronger and more self-reliant. The 2029 trade war shattered the U.S.-Canada partnership. Decades of trust and integration were replaced by caution and mistrust. Canadian businesses, burned by U.S. reliance, accelerated diversification to Europe and Asia. Even if tariffs end, cross-border trade may never fully recover. Supply chains are less efficient, prices higher, and jobs less secure. The once open border now has new barriers, both real and psychological. Ottawa embraces economic nationalism. Washington faces the cost of alienating an ally. The friendship is fractured, and rebuilding trust will be slow and uncertain. North America's economic landscape has changed, perhaps forever.